And I hear the first officer call out. And then the first officer jumps on the radio and he screams, "Holy shit, it's the goat man." And I mean, it's just like everything went quiet. And I could hear the ringing in my ears, and I could feel my heart race. And so I hit my lights and I went flying up there.
I've been told by some older people, elders, that you grab them and you hold them and you don't own them, but you hold them there until daylight. If you can hold them or pull them into the light, it destroys anything they have, any kind of power or anything they were trying to do to you. It'll destroy them.
This guy was like bouncing, like, you know, like how you see people kind of getting ready to jig, you know how they kind of bounce? Yeah, he was like that way. He was just kind of bouncing, and he was just kind of going back and forth on one foot to the other. And he just kind of turned sideways, and he turned back over to the other way, and he took off. Holy shit, he jumped in Wanda.
This is Lodge Tales. I'm your host, Rod Williamson, and thanks again for joining us on another episode. If you are Native American and you'd like to come on the show to share your strange and paranormal experiences, please consider emailing us at lodgetales@gmail.com. Well, folks, welcome back to Lodge Tales. In this episode, Terryn and I continue our conversation about Bigfoot, little people, and this ghost car up at Ghost Ridge. Halfway through, Mike Connelly joins us again. And with him, he talks about that. Don't know if anyone's heard about it, but he calls it a devil above Townpump. And then he retells another story about this hat man jumping in front of cars up at Snowshed. Then there's another one he tells about this devil that chases a man on those railroad tracks, or a hat man, or whatever you want to call him. Then we talk about that jail. There's a spirit down there that talks to inmates. Yeah, so this is a good episode. Thanks, you guys, for, listening to us and sharing the podcast wherever you can, and just showing interest. It's fun to do this, and I'm glad to get it out there for everybody to enjoy, get creeped out by, whatever. But that you listeners really make this worthwhile, and patrons as well. You guys help us a ton. So thanks everybody for supporting us here once again, and let's get into it. But there's a place down there I won't go anymore because of that. And that's long story short, I felt like I was lured there because there was broke branches that pointed the direction to it. And when I walk into it with my rifle, I realize I'm in this really weird danger area where I can't, in the military, certain areas where you can't do things, we call them danger areas. Say there's a big open field, that's a type of danger area because you got no cover and stuff. Well, in this case, it was so narrow that it made my rifle useless. That was the danger area I was in. And I think about it later, and I think that spot I was at, I think it was hunting deer that day. And it would funnel it into that, lure it into that little area and just simply snatch it off the trail. That's what I think. But I was kind of curious because I didn't like what I saw. Those branches were broke from 12 feet up. There was no wind. They were thick branches that would have taken 2 or 3 guys hanging on them to break them. They were snapped clean off and placed. That's why I followed them. It's like it was a lure when I think back. But I was just curious, what's doing this? I didn't think anything about it. As I didn't like what I seen, like I said, so I skirted that area. I was basically trying to clear it to make sure there wasn't a threat there after that. Yeah. And so I skirted all the way around down by Jim Revis's and back up that side. And as I did, I came back around to where I was at, and that's the only way I seen that trail. Whatever it is makes trails and circles wherever it's gonna bed down or whatever. Because
Mm-hmm.
you'll only see that trail for a split second if you're approaching from the only angle you can see it from. Other than that, you're gonna walk right by it and you'll never see a trail there because it's a circle. It blends in with everything else. You'll never see it. You know, like how trails are long and straight. You just see them
Yeah.
easy. These ones are round. You don't see them because they're always in tall grass. In this case, it was red willow, whole bunch of it like buckbrush, and there's a big hollowed out area where it led to. I didn't want to go there. I just couldn't do it. I was too afraid. There was no sound. Like that's what really creeped me out. There was no sound when I got down to that.
Ooh.
That's what made me think I ran into like a danger area. Like I thought I was walking into an ambush is what I thought. I got really scared and I start backing out. I put my rifle up. It was on fire. My finger was on the trigger. Everywhere I looked is where my front sight post was. You know, all the training just took over. I was so scared. I panicked a little bit, but I didn't let myself run. And that's what I
Yeah.
said once I got back at that, and I was like, okay, now I can use my rifle. That's when I start trying to clear it. But that thing's down there, whatever it is. And then my dad seen it down at the bridge. We walked down there. We walked down there, the same bridge you're talking about, you know, earlier. As we get down, or I'm fishing that day above on those cliffs on the Potts' side, right down below theirs.
Yeah.
I'm fishing right there off those cliffs. He goes down in that brush line and crosses with Carol, and they start soaking their feet. When they sit down and they get to looking around, oh
Mm-hmm.
cripes, they caught it.
Oh my
It was standing
God.
against the rocks. It like was holding it up, being just still, wouldn't
Man,
move.
I think that side is very like, spooky when you're by yourself.
Yeah,
Because that one time I like got a flat tire. I was like drinking with a couple friends,
yeah,
and I got a flat tire like right in between that coulee that like goes up right by like Kitson's.
mm-hmm.
And I got a flat tire right there, and I was like, hold on, I'll walk down to my my Auntie Fran's. I don't know why I was thinking I was gonna walk down to my Auntie Fran's. Like she's like a half a mile away. I was
Yeah.
like, fuck. But I was like, I'll find us some help, and I just start walking. But I was like walking through those fields, and like I like at one point I just had to rip off like I had like these little sandals on. I ripped those off because they were like hurting my feet so bad. And then I like went into the ditch bank. I had to swim across that little current.
Yeah.
And I got across there, and then I was like, okay. I was like, well, I'm gonna hide my shoes and my wallet and my keys right here. So I did, and I dug like a little hole, and I hid everything right there. And then I just went straight. I was like, I'm gonna go to my Auntie Jolene's house. And I was like, I'm in my territory, out of 2 minutes, so I can go out here. So I went across there, and oh my God, all I kept hearing was like little footsteps, like all around me. And I was swimming across the river,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, like it dropped off, like where I couldn't touch the bottom, and I was like swimming. And I was like swimming, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God. And I was like, please help me, like, like praying to, whatever. And I just crawled across that bank, and I was just breathing all hard. And the next thing you know, it felt like little like hands kind of like drug me up, but I kind of thought that it was just me like dragging myself up. And then I could see a little tiny trail to Auntie Jolene's house, but it wasn't like big enough for like like a human trail or like a cow trail.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a little tiny trail through those trees. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just follow this, because I was bare feet, like my feet were already cut up. And I just walked through there, and oh my God, I don't know. I kind of think that like little people help me, I guess.
Yeah.
through there
That's what I was thinking too.
because, yeah, kind of. I mean, they scare me at
Hmm.
the same time, but at the same time, they've helped me and my brother across rivers, which is weird.
Hmm. That's really cool. To tell you the truth, those little people, I'm really intrigued by them. They they really help us a lot. You know, I've seen some that scared me. I've seen a shadow one over at Bill's that scared me. But I mean, there I hear more good stories about them where we're from than bad
Yeah,
ones. You know, I imagine because they're everywhere. Those little people are everywhere in every country. You know, they're not just here. They're like everywhere. And
yeah, right.
they look like different things too. They're
Mm,
different. They I don't know. Like ours look like little Indians, right? Like little shrunk Indians is how they look
yeah,
here. So yeah, it's so strange. But I'm fascinated by those stories. That's really unique that that happened to you, and I think, you know, you were worth some. How do you say that? You there was
like,
something they seen in you that was worth their while to take pity on
yeah,
you.
right.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, because my feet were already cut up. I was already like walking in the sun for like, I don't know, like 25 minutes.
Yeah, that's no
I mean, it
joke.
was like the middle of summer.
Mm-hmm.
Like those people that were with me, they just left me.
Oh
They didn't
no.
like, they didn't send anybody like, oh, she's walking on the ditch bank road. She's right there. Like they could literally see me. And, like I could see them, and I could see them getting picked up by people, and they just went straight to town. And I was just watching them. I was like, it's too far for me to walk to the road and try and hitchhike and sit there and wait for another car to go by. So I might as well just walk to either my auntie's house or just walk straight home. And when I tried, holy shit, it was hard. Holy shit, it was.
That's a long trek through there where you went that
It
route you're
is, yeah,
describing. Yeah.
yeah. I didn't think it was gonna be that long. I was like, oh my god. I was like, it's literally right there. And then as I went in there, holy shit, it was like a whole other world.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, I couldn't even touch the bottom. I couldn't even do nothing. I was like getting swept away by currents. And then my feet were all bloody, like cut up. And I was standing on top of like Jolene's porch. And she was like, Terryn, where's your shoes? And where did you come from?
Hmm.
And I said, from the river. And she was like, you walked across there? And she like got so mad at me.
That sounds like Auntie Jolene.
I
Yeah.
know. Oh my gosh, yeah, I really got bitched out.
Yeah. Those are like
Mm.
yeah. Jeez.
Like I know for sure I will never cross that again.
There's so many spirits out there in that area. There's geez, all those old ones that lived out there, they all had medicine, you know. Like every house up that creek had medicine. You know, a long time ago, if you do enough research, you'll run into it. Where there was a guy named
Yeah.
Chief Crow that gave all his son-in-laws medicine, like, and they were called like the all sacred people or the all holy people because they all had medicine up and down that creek. Uncle Marvin tells stories about that too. Hmm. Like Grandma Cecile and Charlie Horn, they had bundles, you know. Everybody up
Yeah.
that creek, everybody up and down that creek. So there are a
I
lot
know
of
it's
spirits out there.
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I know it's pretty holy, like for sure. Like especially when I ran across her um when I had to run through those trees and I heard all those like things whispering at me. I learned from there. I was like, holy shit.
Tell that story.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah, tell that one if
So
you want.
Yeah. Yeah, I will. Because I remember telling you it before, like, when you called me,
Mm-hmm.
like last month.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on, Colton's his whispering me a story that he wants me to tell.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was going to doors. You want to say it out loud? Do you just want to say it on here? No? Okay. Do you want me to tell it? Okay. Can I, well, I'm going to tell Colton's story for him.
Okay.
So he said about this one time he was, how old do you think you were? Like a year ago? I was 6. Yeah, he said that he was 6. He said that he was, were you home alone? Were you home alone? Or no? Who was there? Were they all in the living room or where were they? Forgot. Okay. Well, anyways, he said that he was walking, in my parents' house, well, Grandpa Teddy's house.
Hmm.
You know where the bathroom is?
Yeah.
He said that he's walked around that corner and he's seen that bathroom door like close by itself, but like slowly.
Whoa.
And he just kind of like looked at it and then just kind of like took off. But he said that's his ghost story.
That's where when I was telling you about that bundle, that man in that
Yeah,
bundle, that's where he
yeah.
came from. He came from that bathroom. I don't I think he might have come out of that room first, then went to that bathroom. He peeked in that door right next there. That was where me and Amber slept, and then we didn't touch Grandpa's room. Everything was still in there. The way it was.
Yeah.
Grandma's clothes, everything was still there. We didn't bother anything in there. And he walked in there. That's where the bundle was. Then he walked down the hallway. It really scared Brian. I mean, Daniel. Brian was playing the computer and I was kind of watching him, but Daniel was sitting with his back against his back to that hallway that comes into the living room.
Yeah.
And our dog just started barking at them and Daniel jumped across that way. But yeah, that door has moved before. I've heard stories about that door before. I mean,
That bathroom door?
yeah, because when Amber got up, she came out and said that. She said, "Did you come down this hallway and like come out the bathroom and come check on me?" Something like that. And that's that door moved. It did its thing, and she, yeah, I've heard something similar to that before.
Ooh, that's scary. Because honestly, you know what? Like me and my parents, we have never like touched anything in that bathroom. Honestly, there's still like those Winnie the Pooh, like those Winnie the Pooh little
Yeah,
pictures below the sink, or like above the sink, below the mirror.
yeah,
They're still there. Like even that long mirror behind the door,
yeah.
that's still there.
Is it still there?
Yeah, yeah. That whole bathroom has not been touched.
It's got that.
Like we clean it, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we clean it out and everything. Like the only thing that we add was just like a little cabinet above the toilet. But
Oh,
that's about it. Like we didn't take anything out. We didn't paint everything. Like we painted the whole house, but the one room we did not paint was that bathroom. And I'm just now realizing this. Holy shit.
weird. No, but
Yeah, that is weird.
yeah, there's. I wouldn't. Me personally, growing up there at that house,
Yeah.
I never really got bothered in that house. Like I always looked at it as a really safe place. Never
Yeah,
like,
me too.
and I mean like the travelers, because I think a lot of these are just travelers. They just come through. They're not like a lot of things that stick around that I've noticed anyways. So I think it's that valley, not necessarily the house, right? I think it's that valley, whole to medicine, that whole valley right
Oh
there. You know,
God.
And what just, I mean, all that land there on the res, there's so many things that go on there. I mean, just a crick over, you got Ghost Ridge, where all of those people are
Right?
buried, you know?
Did I ever tell you about that time when me and my one friend, well, two of my friends, we all got chased by like a ghost car?
No, you never told me that.
So this one time, my friend was driving. My other friend was sitting in the passenger seat, and I was sitting in the back seat.
Mm-hmm.
And she had like a big old like Escalade, like like a big old like pretty much a big old like van.
Yeah.
If I like it was huge, and we just went right past Ghost Ridge, and he said, "Terryn, who's that? Can you look back and see like how close is that vehicle?" And so I looked back and I seen that car like getting closer, and then it'd go back, and then it'd get closer, and then it'd fall back, and then it'd get closer. Like it just kept doing that like over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, heck, I can't like differentiate like how far away they are. And he was like, well, shit, their brights are on. So I was like, well, just speed up, I guess. So he kept going like, further towards like Hartview.
Mm-hmm.
And when he did, he got like faster and faster, and that car just kept coming up. Like the headlights were right on us. And I was like, oh my God. And he like kept trying to like lose them. And then all of a sudden, as soon as we got around one turn, it just like the lights just kind of went dark and we didn't see them again. And so we pulled over at like a pull-out, and we went back just to see like who's following us or whatever. And there was nobody there. Like I swear to God, there was nobody even there was no cars out there that were coming all the way out from Browning down like past Old Agency, down that Heartbeat clear cross road. There was no cars. And then all of a sudden those lights just like popped up.
Jeez. About where on that road do you figure?
Well, that's where he said. He said it was by Ghost Ridge. I wasn't sure, though, because it was dark out.
Oh, yeah. If you don't know that road very well, you would have a hard time kind of...
Yeah.
It's basically
and,
all to your left. All those hills to your left right after Forehorn turn
yeah,
off. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all those hills.
Yeah, that's how it was. And I was just like, oh, my God. Like, I was in the back by myself. And like they were up front, and I remember that one girl was just screaming like, "Ah!" And I was like, "Why are you screaming?" And I was like, "Stop screaming! You're scaring me." Because like in the back, I was like sitting there like, "I'm not scared. I'm not scared."
Wow.
But that guy driving was like after we got to Heartview, and we we drove to Great Falls the next day. But when we got to Valier, that's when he started telling us like scary stories, like, oh, this is where people usually get followed by ghost cars and everything. We're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, 7 Mile Lane's just right out there too.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff happens there.
I drove out to 7 Mile Lane before with my dad and my sister and my uncle.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if it was because we were all drinking and we couldn't tell that anything was happening to us, or if Raquel was just driving so fast that we couldn't tell. But I don't think anything happened to us out there, which I'm glad, because I did not want to look outside. I kept looking at my dad. I was like, I'm not going to look outside the windows. He's like, yeah, me either. He's going to stare at each other.
Yeah, nothing's happened to me out there either. We were even broke down too on that road, and it was turning evening, and me and my brother had to run to Depot to get gas, and we had to leave the women in the car.
Oh my
It's like
God.
Jeepers Creepers kind of feeling because
Yes.
that grass, whatever, was really high. That wheat, whatever they have there. It was really creepy.
Oh, that's scary.
But we didn't get bothered, and when we're coming from down here to go back home and visit and stuff, we'll go on that
Yeah.
road to save time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and nothing ever happened. We'd stop and take pictures at that little corner where they seen that Batman. That's the only way they describe him. He's like sitting on that post. Like imagine sitting like I don't know, not on your butt, but still on your feet, but crouched like that, sitting.
Kind of like how Batman would sit like that, like
Yeah,
when he's like on top of the buildings.
yeah, like that, kind of like a gargoyle or whatever. But
Ew, yeah, yeah.
but the thing had its wings around it, like hugging itself with its wings. And it's a man, but looks like a bat.
Ew.
Yeah. Yeah, that's. Anyways, right at that corner where that is, I always tell my wife, like, hey, remember the Batman? Ooh, she'll say. And I'll go look over it. We'll just take pictures this way. We won't even look over that way. But yeah,
Oh my God, that's scary.
I've traveled it, 20 times, 30 times, 40. I don't know. I lost count. Quite a bit. And we've never, ever seen anything on that road, ever.
Hmm.
But we don't travel it at night ever either.
Yeah.
Is the other thing. So, I mean, a couple times we have, but we don't make it a habit of it. I mean, because it's at night, and if you're on that little road, what if you catch a sharp rock and you're just like way out there? I mean, that's how I think. I'm like, I'd rather be on this road. There's a better chance of whoever coming by and like lending a hand or whatever. So
All right, bro.
yeah, it's like basically for safety, I don't go on that road too much at night, but I will. I just haven't very much. I try not to.
Ew, oh my God, that's scary. That's
There's.
like because like when I come back from Butte to Browning,
Hmm.
I always drive past it where I'm like I'd always look over and I'm like, ew, 7 Mile Lane. So, like I'm like, ew, and I just like keep driving, but I'm like, I can never ever drive on that. But I always drive by myself like all the time. Anyways. I mean, well, now that I have Colton,
Hmm.
he usually rides with me, but back then I would always drive by myself. And I would just avoid everything and everyone.
Yeah, that place is. I've heard too many stories about it to doubt any of them. There's
Right?
there's just too many about that place. Okay, now we're just jumping right into the conversation with Mike Connelly. Here we go. All right, we're gonna call Mike Connelly and do this again.
Hello.
Yeah, it's on again, huh?
Here we go again.
Shit, so what were you talking about in that? You emailed me or texted me and said there's a devil above Townpump?
You ain't never heard about the devil at Townpump?
I've heard a couple of freaky stories from there, but nothing that stands out like that.
Yeah. Well, the devil sits at Townpump and he watches everybody. All the drunks and the juggies that wander in and out there and all hours of the night.
Oh, shit.
So I got a story about that. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's hear it.
So probably 2006-ish, 2007, as a juvenile officer for White Buffalo Home. And we were patrolling, and I want to say it was right around Halloween, October-ish anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And I had one of the detention officers riding with me, and he had a devil mask, and he brought it with us. And one of our friends was working security at Townpump, and so one night we was out patrolling. We had the night shift, and we was cruising and just doing our thing. And
all law enforcement always met at Townpump at right about 1:45, 2 o'clock, just before bar time. That way, because it was like, I guess, what do you call it, the hot spot where all the crimes and shit happens because everybody's going to make their last beer run, and so that's where everybody goes. Well, prior to that, me and this guy that was riding with me was a detention officer. We was messing with our friend that was doing security, and so he put that devil mask on and he went around the south side of Townpump when they had a window on that side. And I parked towards the back, and he jumped out and put his mask on, and he went running up to that window, and he went banging on it and looked in there, and the guy he was scaring jumped and yelled, and we got a kick out of it, and I pulled up, and he jumped in a car, and he jumped in our patrol car, and we headed out. We did it maybe one more time, I think, throughout the night, and then we met there probably about 1:30, 1:45ish that night, and we just kind of watched the traffic, everybody coming in, grabbing their last beer runs, and excuse me, and grabbing their last beer runs and whatnot. And, maybe about, I want to say 2:30ish, 3 o'clock, we got a call for a MVA south on 89, and so everybody went flying out there, and it sounded like a pretty bad wreck, and there was a fatality. And so the sergeant, the BIA sergeant at the time, he asked me if I'd run back to Townpump. Him and the highway patrolman asked if I'd run back to Townpump and secure the video of him to see if he was at Townpump, because before he died, I guess he was saying he had somebody in with him, and he was asking where the guy went that was with him, and things like that, and he ended up going to the hospital and then passing away. So I went back to Townpump, me and my ride along, and we went in and we talked to the security guy. We was like, hey, we need this video from this time to this time. And he said, all right. He said, I'll get it. And we asked for the front entrance, inside, and then all the pumps. And we give him a description of the car. So maybe about 4 that morning, we worked till 6 in the morning, and maybe about 4, my phone rings, and he's like, hey, can you come up here to Townpump? And I was like, yeah. He said, I have your video. So we get there, and he's like, you guys want to watch this? And so we're sitting there, and he found the car, and he used the back camera, but he rewound it to probably 8, 9 o'clock that night, and he said, look at this. And as we sitting there watching it, there was a back camera, top of the building all the way at the back. You could watch down the side, and you can see the pumps. So it was on the back side. What would that be? The southeast corner, and it was facing towards the pumps. It could see top of the roof edge, and then down that whole side to the gas pumps. And he said, look at this. And he pointed, and you could see the outline of a tall, slender man. He had on like a big cowboy hat or a big top hat, long trench coat, one of the fancy kind, that have the pointed tails on them and shit. And he was sitting there, and he had long pointy boots, and you could see his boots because he was sitting with his legs. How do you describe it? He was sitting on the edge with his legs kind of hung over, and his legs were crossed, and he was kind of leaned back with one hand behind him, and he was watching us. And you can see him. He was looking. He was leaning over. He watched my rider head up to that window, and when he jumped up and scared him, and the guy scared, this man kind of fell backwards like he was laughing. And he watched us pull up, and when we pulled up, I just got goosebumps. When I pulled up, he jumped in. My rider jumped in, and we headed out. And that guy, you can watch him. He walks that rail down to that edge, and then he kind of goes off screen over on top of the roof. And I looked at the security guy and I said, "What the F is that?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, "We went up there." He said, "There's nobody up there." He said, "But wait, there's more." And I'm like, "Okay." And so he fast forwarded and he found a car. The car showed up. It was right around 2 o'clock, a little bit before 2. You can see the guy, he got out, and he didn't have tinted windows. He was in by himself. He got out of the car at that far south pump. So you can see him perfectly. You watch him stagger into to Townpump, and he switches videos to on another monitor to inside. Well, the whole time that car pulls in, that man from earlier, he was walking that rail, just kind of watching the crowd as everybody come in. And you could tell he was really interested, because he would just look and he'd just stare at a car and he'd follow it. And then he'd look back at this other car, and then he'd watch the people coming in and out. And so we got to watching it, and then you see the guy in the car. He comes out and he has I don't know, he has some beer, maybe a cold pack, 24 pack, something like that. And he's carrying it, and he puts it in his car. He puts his gas in as he's standing out there pumping. He jumps in his car to leave. And just as he gets in his car, you can see that man on the top. He was watching him. He got really curious when this guy come walking out, really interested in him. And when a guy started pumping his gas and got in his car to go, the man from the top, it's like he floated down and he turned into like I don't know how to explain it, the screen, whatever it was, he went into a white kind of light thing, and you can see that back door open and close, and then you watch that guy pull out and head south on 89. And probably I want to say 15, 20 minutes later, that's when we got the call for that wreck. And so a lot of people said that it was there was a few clear pictures of it, and when he was sitting there, you could see his pointed boots. And a lot of people say it was the devil.
Jeez.
I probably have another story. Anyways, that guy passed away. We searched around. There was no signs of anybody else with him, but we could clearly see the back door open, but nobody get in with the car with him.
So did you guys know about anything like that before he was messing around with that mask?
No, we had no idea that anything was going on up there, or didn't notice anything. I mean, how often do you look up at the roof?
I know.
You know?
I never do.
So
I'm gonna know.
Well, Browning Townpump for you.
Is that, I wonder whatever happened to that video.
So we had it, well, FBI, Highway Patrol, and BIA Police had copies, and then we had a copy, and we were showing everybody we could. And once I quit working at the White Buffalo home, I have no idea where that video went. It was on a CD, so those are pretty obsolete, but we had it for quite a while, and we'd show everybody we could. Everybody would come up and ask to see the devil video, and we'd show them.
So when he come off of that roof, he said he floated down. Was he already turned into that greenish white light or whatever it was?
About halfway through, he floated down in full form, and then he just turned into a light, and he went down right to the back right door of that car, and the back door opened and he disappeared.
What did he look like? Did he have, was his clothes dark? Was he a shadow? Was he full form? How did he look? He
was more of a shadow, full form kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You couldn't make it out with the cameras and whatnot, but you could make his shape out. He had long fingers. He had long pointed toes. He had the big top hat, or the big cowboy hat, one of those great big 10-gallon cowboy hats. Mm-hmm. That's what he wore, and you could see his long trench coat when he would stand up. and he'd walk because you could see the tail part of it hanging down. So, I mean, you could see all of that. And, I mean, you couldn't really see the face because the hat was pulled down. What I think of is, Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think of when I remember back to that.
Ooh. Man, that's geez. What did so everybody's aware of this, right? On the police force, were there any other times that happened that you know of?
Oh yeah, there's at least 2 more times that I can recall.
You care to share those? Yeah, share those.
So I'll do the short one. Well, they're both kind of short, but I'll do the next one. Not a whole lot, but when I was a deputy, the tribe was backed up on calls, and we got a call from their dispatch, and they asked if one of us would go up to Snowshed. They said there's a man in a trench coat with a cowboy hat jumping in front of cars on the bridge. And he's standing on a rail when they come by, and then he jumps off in front of them, and they got to swerve to miss him. So I was in Browning, so I headed up US 2, and I got to Snowshed right at the top. And sure enough, there's a man, and a tall man in a cowboy hat and a trench coat. And he's standing on a railing, and I hit my lights and my spotlight, and he kind of steps over the edge down and falls down to where the tracks are. And I'm thinking, holy shit. So I call out, and I take that little gravel road, and you can go under the train tracks, under the road there with the train tracks. And I turn down in there, and I cross into Burlington Northern's fence, and I turn towards a bridge with my headlights and my lights going, and there's this man standing there. The best way to describe it is, those Marlboro cigarettes where that cowboy's leaning against the wall with his foot up on it. Mm-hmm. That's how this guy was standing, and he kind of lit a cigarette, and he was standing there smoking. And so I started driving towards him. I got to check out what this guy's problem is. And I get up by him, and I can see a face, and he has this, this smile is just, that movie that they just come out with, Smile? Mm-hmm. That's the kind of smile this guy had. And it's like he just slithered around to the side of that cement pillar that he was leaning against. And so I was thinking to myself, holy shit, do I really want to get out? And so I turn my spotlights over there, and I light it all up, and I get out with my flashlight, and I kind of start walking and announcing myself, hey, law enforcement, come out. And I get around the other side of the pillar and all up around in there, and there's nobody around. And I thought, hell with this, and I got my cop car, and I cleared, and I left.
I wonder, was he trying to cause wrecks, I wonder?
I would assume so. He was standing on the edge, and he would jump out in front of cars.
How many calls were called in that night on that?
There was probably about 4 or 5 at least. People traveling on US 2 headed to town.
He's really raising hell up there then.
And so that was my third run-in with him. And so I would say my second one, I was working housing security, probably 2006-ish, early 2006. And there was me and another guy, and he was working up on that hill. And where Harry Barnes stays, there's that hill back there. There's old Border Patrol houses. And we was watching that old low-rent project when they was redoing all those houses. Mm-hmm. Well, he was parked up there in a little S10 Blazer, and we was all patrolling around. And that was our main area, was just to watch the construction site. And so, next thing you know, we hear him screaming for help, and everybody goes up there, and we get there and he calls for an ambulance too, and we get there and there's this guy. I can't remember his name. I want to say he was a Gardapi. We're listening to him. His back's all scratched up. He's all bloody. He's bloody all over the front, and his back's all scratched up, and his shirt's all tore. And I was standing there when a BIA cop asked him, well, what happened? So this guy's story is that he was at a house party in Knott's Landing, and everybody started fighting around, so he wanted to head home. And he lived out in Femaville across the track. So he said he just kind of wandered, and he got up on he got right at the edge of Depot Coulee, and he didn't want to cross because it was all wet that time of year. It's probably November-ish. And so he said he walked up to the tracks, and he got on the tracks, and he started walking down. And he said he had his beer, and he was just walking and drinking it. And he said he come up on this man who was sitting sideways in the tracks, just kind of laying across them, and he was playing with a rope. And he said he walked by him, and he told him hello. And when he described him, it's the same person that I've seen twice. Big cowboy hat, long trench coat, pointy cowboy boots, and this guy said he had a big smile and long fingers. He said he told him hello, and he walked by him. He said the guy told him how you doing. He smiled at him, and the guy said, oh, I'm good, just heading home. And so he said he continued walking down the tracks, and the guy jumped up and chased after him and said, hey, can I walk with you? He was like, sure, you can walk with me. So they're walking, and the man that he's seeing never walks beside him or in front of him. He just stays behind him, and he starts kicking the back of his shoe, like when we were kids, and somebody running in front of you kick their foot. And the guy said that was getting really annoying, and he asked him to stop. And the devil said no. And the guy said, well, leave me alone. And he was like, no. And the guy said, well, why not? And he said, because I want to tie you up and cut you. And he had that rope, and that guy said they started wrestling. He said he lunged at him, and they started wrestling. He dropped his beer, and he said he got disoriented when he hit his head, and he jumped up, and he just took off running because he could feel something warm on him, and it sharp pains. And so he just wanted to get the hell out of there. So he jumped up, took off running. Well, he started running back towards US 2, the opposite way from his home. And he said that guy was chasing him, and he was laughing, and he would say, stop, come here. And about that time, he would feel sharp pains on his back and stuff running down his back, and he said he didn't want to stop. So he sprinted from those tracks all the way up to US 2, and then he was running down US 2, and that guy was still chasing him. It was probably about 2 in the morning, 1:30, 2 in the morning. He said he run down, and he could see one of the housing security guys sitting there in his car. His dome light was on, and he could see him out in that field, so he went running over there, and that's when he went banging on that car. He got blood all over the side of it. The housing security guy said when he got out, he was the only one there. He didn't see anybody, but he had a bunch of long scratches on his back, and the back of his shirt was tore up. And that was the second time that I've ever heard of the devil. I guess I've seen him twice and heard of him once.
I wonder how many other stories are like that out there. It's probably quite a
I'm
few.
sure there's probably a lot. Just got to get people to come out and say it. I mean, I don't know. I really hate to call it the devil, but I honestly think that's what it is. That's what he is.
Mm-hmm. How about that jail cell? Is that jailhouse down there? Have you heard any scary stories about that place?
Oh, man, I used to run that jail for a while. So, let's see, what's a good one? All right. So we used to have, I'll give you this last one, then I got to get going.
Okay.
So we used to have this, when BIA come in, I started working as a supervisor there for corrections. They had a restraint chair. That's what the federal government used. And it was just for rowdy inmates, people who come in, try to fight, and it was just basically you just strapped them down in a chair and they sat there and screamed all they wanted. It was from them, stopping them from doing self-harm to themselves, beating up the wall, shit like that. So we had this girl come in. God, she was on a fight. She's spitting and kicking and biting, and she just wouldn't calm down, so we just took her straight to the restraint chair. And we had this holding cell. And actually, that's another story to this one, too. But we took her to the holding cell, and we just put her straight in that restraint chair, and we strapped her down, and we got her sitting there. And you don't ever dress them out. You just put them in there in their regular clothes that they come in. And so me and another BIA corrections guy, we put our camera on her, and we was watching her just to keep an eye on her. And we were sitting there, and he was like, "Who's she talking to?" And I looked at the camera, and she was looking up towards the shower part in there, and she was nodding her head, yeah, and she was mumbling words. And I said, "I don't know, let's go look." So we thought maybe one of the trustees was by the door talking to her. So we go down around past the lunchroom and approach that holding cell, and we could hear her mumbling something. Then when we got close, she got quiet. She just stopped talking. And I opened that door up, and it's like, "Who you talking to?" And she's like, "None of your effing business." And they're cussing us again. I was like, "All right." So I closed it, locked it up. We went back to our office, and we were sitting there, and we started watching her again. Next thing you know, she was looking up at the shower, and she was talking. And she's having a full-blown conversation. You couldn't hear him on those cameras, but you could see him moving, her lips moving, and she's talking. And so snuck down there again, and sure enough, she quit talking, cussed us out. And so we let her talk to whoever she was talking to for a little bit. Maybe about an hour goes by, and I go down there, and I say, "Hey," I said, "Are you calm?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm calm." I said, "Do you want to get dressed out and get a blanket and a mat and go to sleep?" She said, "Yeah, please." So we took her in the booking room. We closed the door. We let her get dressed in there, and she come out, and we escorted her back to that holding cell because our drunk tank was full, and the women's side didn't have a drunk tank, and we didn't want to put her in with anybody. So she grabbed a mat and a blanket, and she heads into the cell and lays her mat down, and she gets down, she lays down, and we go back to our, we close up the door, and we go back to our office, and we're sitting there. We start watching, and she's laying there, and she covers her head, and she lays like that probably, I don't know, about 20, 30 minutes, and then all of a sudden she just sits up and looks at the shower. I elbowed my partner, and I said, "Oh, here she goes again." And we're watching her, and she sits up in her blanket, wraps it around her, and she starts having a conversation looking at the shower. We don't know why. So I tell my partner, "Rick, let's walk down there." I said, "Let's be quiet and let's be sneaky and see if we can get down there." So we did. We went the different routes through the cell block and come up the back way. It was a shorter way. And because at night we just had all the gates open to the cell blocks and cell doors closed so we can do our regular checks. So we walk around that corner, and we could hear her say, "Shh, shh, here they come." And I just got chills, and I opened that door, and I was like, "Who the hell are you talking to?" And she's like, "Nobody." And I was like, "We heard you. We can see you on camera." And she's like, "No, I'm not talking to anybody." So we close the door, and me and my partner's a little spooked, and we head up and we watch her, and she's talking. And next thing you know, something crawls under her blanket. So she's sitting there with her back against the wall and her blanket wrapped around her. And she lifts up the left side of her arm like somebody's getting under it, and she wraps her arm around him. And you could see something sitting underneath that blanket with her. So we go running back there and throw open that door and kick her out of there and take her back to her regular cell, and we leave that door open for the rest of the night. We don't know what's in there. And that girl never did tell us who she was talking to. So I got all kinds of stories about that jail.
Jeez.
But I'll tell you a quick one where I think it happened. So I was talking to my dad, who worked down there a lot of years, and he told me a story back in the 70s. They arrested a non-member. He was a black guy up in East Glacier. He just beat his wife to death in East Glacier, and that's back then when county and tribe didn't have very good working relationship, and so they held him in our jail, in a tribal jail. They was waiting for county to show up to come get him, and my dad said this man was probably 6'5", 300 pounds, just big burly guy. He said when they put him in that cell, the holding cell, because it was an actual cell, the guy ended up hanging himself in the shower.
Jeez.
And before county ever got to him. So that lays the foundation for the story. So when in 97, 98, when I was working as a corrections officer before I went to the military, one night I was working, and that was before it was a holding cell. There was one bed in there, and that's where our trustees stayed. And because we could turn out the light for that one, and our day trustee could sleep and be peaceful, but they had to keep the door cracked. So one night I was working and I was doing my rounds, and when you do your rounds, you gotta shine your flashlight in there, and just to make sure that they're still in there and they haven't escaped. Mm-hmm. So I do my female side, I do the male side, and then I go around and I'm gonna check on my trustees. My night trustees are up in the laundry room, and they're folding towels and clothes and whatnot. And so I walk down past the TV room. A couple trustees in there are watching TV, and I get up to this trustee cell, the holding cell, and the door's cracked, and I pull it open a little bit. I flash my light in there. I shine it on the trustee's face just to make sure, and something at the corner of my eye moved, and I looked up and I shined, and there was a man standing in that shower, a big black man. And I jumped back and I shined my light, and it was gone. And so I just got chills again. And so I couldn't just leave, and so I shined that light in there. But when I shined it at the shower, you couldn't see it, so I put it down at the floor, so it still kind of lit up the room, and I kind of poked my head in there, and when I would stick my head in, his head would come out of the shower at the same time, like I was looking in a mirror,
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd put my head in, I'd look closer, and I would pull my head back, and I was thinking, holy shit. And I'd done that like 2 or 3 times, and finally a trustee woke up and said, "What the hell are you doing, Connelly?" And I said, "There's a man in your shower." He said, "I know, he keeps me up most of the night by talking." And I was like, "Oh shit." And I said, "You know about it?" He's like, "Yeah, he's always been in there." He said, "Now leave us alone, I'm trying to sleep." So I left him alone, went back up to my office. So that's when I told my dad about that story, and that's when he reiterated about the black dude that they arrested and hung himself in that shower.
I wonder, has anyone ever, smudged that place out?
I don't know about smudge, but I know at one point they had a priest come over and bless it. I don't know how well that ever does, but I don't think anybody's ever actually smudged it, you know what I mean?
Ooh.
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea, because I have a lot more stories of that place.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of stuff just stuck there, that can't leave.
I wouldn't doubt it. A lot of people, a lot of spirits. I mean, the sad reality is a lot of people died in that jail.
Yeah, I know of a few that died there too. Jeez.
And so, their spirits and everything are probably just hanging out there, but I doubt that's anything the BIA would ever allow anybody to come in and do.
Oh, so that you'd have to clear it through all them, what, the chief of police or something?
No, the BIA, they don't have bureau police anymore.
Oh, I see. Huh. Jeez.
But yeah, that's all I got. Enough time for tonight.
Okay.
But I have a lot more stories of that jail. For next time, we'll have to set up another time.
All right. Sounds good, man.
I got some good ones of that jail.
Yeah, let's do a whole thing on those.
Yeah, I probably got maybe 5, 6 stories or so.
All right. Jeez, I
A
hope
few things that come around.
if you know anybody else that's might be willing to share, have them, call me up, text me or
Yeah, I
something.
will. Maybe I'll talk to some of those old cops.
Yeah.
You know, those are the ones that you want to visit with because see everything.
I talked to Robert Wildgun for a while there once when I was doing his floor. Man, he's got some. Oh, they're scary.
I heard of some stories. I listened to Robert tell some of his stories living in that old Douglas house down in boarding school.
Those are the ones he told me too.
Things talking in his ear and telling him to do shit and pushing him downstairs and.
Oh, heck, he told
I got some. Huh?
Oh, he told me when he got basically possessed down there. There was a party going on. His kids had a party or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and there's one of those times, and then there was like some coffee that he just slammed. It was plumb hot. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, he got some good ones, Robert. He had an experience down there. They ended up having to move out the house because of it.
Jeez.
So, I got some stories about them boarding school houses too.
Oh yeah, that's right. You guys used to live down there, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but for another time, Rod.
Okay.
All righty, we'll talk to you later.
All right, thanks, Mike. See you.
Yep. Bye.
Wow. Mikey Connelly. That guy never disappoints. Yeah. These guys got really good stories, this Mike and Terryn. So this next episode that we're coming out with is going to be a patron episode. And it's actually going to be a part 3 with Terryn Williamson. Yeah, she comes back and tells a lot more. And stay tuned on Friday night, Saturday morning, we'll have that patron episode out. That one's a little delayed. There's a little more editing going on with that one, so it'll be a little bit late. So anyways, until next time, see you.